Please welcome for our final award, Washington Oxi Day Foundation Executive Director, Mike Manatos.
So I should mention I listed the different countries that are represented by their defense attachés today, and I didn't recognize one who's possibly the most significant. All of us, every morning we turn on the news, we see the latest in the war that's got everyone in the world consumed, and that's the war in Ukraine. We have representing the defense attaché of Ukraine here. Thank you very much for being with us today. It's an honor. So the recipient of our final award, the 2022 Oxi Service Award, is George Poppas. As a teenager, he also fought during World War II in Greece and the resistance against the Nazis. He then came to the United States and served in the U.S. Army during the Korean War. While he's unable to travel to join us today, he sent his son to represent him. Well, the son of George Poppas is none other than the highest Greek-American ranking in the U.S. military and one of only 17 four-star generals in the U.S. Army. We've been honored to have him as our keynote speaker twice, and we are thrilled to have him back here a third time, but this time to present the service award to his father. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Commanding General of the United States Army Forces, General Andrew Poppas.
Andy, thank you. Madam Ambassador, you honor us with your presence here today. Thank you very much. And I'll tell you, as we start this, it's hard enough to sing one national anthem, let alone two. So the young lady that was singing, if she's here, that was wonderfully done. But I'll tell you, Andy, the one thing I do have to say is, everybody else got pictures in their youth. There was a time that I used to have hair like my son Nico. I would have picked a much different picture for myself. But thank you. And for Andy and Mike and the fellow honorees, and standing and sharing a stage with Colonel Jacobs, who I've known from before, he is a true warrior. He's an inspiration to us all. And I hope you see he's got a great sense of humor. And thank you for having him here today. And Pete, being here today and getting to see you, you still win the award for the best mustache on a pilot from Vietnam forward, and you keep rocking it. It's great to see you. And to all at the Oxi Day Foundation and teammate supporters, thank you very much. It's great to be here. For not only allowing me to return for this year's event and another year of beautiful weather, which just shows how much God loves the Greeks, but more importantly, to accept this honor on behalf of my father. As Mike identified, my dad is 91, and he intended to be here, and he regrets not being able to make it. He could not travel from Wisconsin. But it's my privilege to stand here for him and accept this honor. And I'll tell you, you're never too old to want to make your parents proud. And that's what that means to me. And I don't take this opportunity to rep my father, George, and the whole family name lightly. It is an honor. Because growing up in a Greek-American household, our family name was everything. It was our foundation. It's what we honored and represents our integrity. That's what it means to my family and the name. And some of you might have similar experiences growing up. Because when one of us kids got in trouble in the years past, and usually it was me, though I was framed, the worst punishments were when my dad would actually take our name away. And when we went out, after that happened, we could introduce ourselves only by our first name, because whatever transaction, it brought dishonor on the family. And until we earned back that distinction, we couldn't use our last name. And you chuckle now, but as a youngin', that had a pretty profound impact. So I'm especially proud to be here today, in good standing, I might add, to accept the award that bears the name George Poppas. He's right behind me there. And I would have picked a younger picture for him, too. I think it's in there. And it represents his values. Now, one of my dad's most closely held values is his humility. And it's one of the things that I most respect about my father. And if he were here standing right now today, the first thing he'd tell you is that he has no business being on this stage with people in the same breath as a Medal of Honor recipient or a world-renowned mechanical engineer. Colonel Jacobs and Daphne and Nico, thank you. Thank you for sharing your stories, letting my father share the stage with you. Ever humble, my father would tell you that he's no hero. He merely enjoyed the simple life working hard in service to others, and by making the most of the opportunities that he was provided, that he was given. And he owes it all really, initially, to a local butcher in Patras, Greece. You see, the story began, as we just identified, with Oxi Day in 1940. Madam Ambassador, nobody put it more eloquently or passionately as you did last evening. And it went on for 4 years. Those were 4 hard-fought and bloody years. During that time frame, my dad was 10, 11, 12. Now, he wasn't a fighter per se, but he resisted. And he filled that crucial role in support of the fight. He pointed anti-Nazi slogans. He passed out flyers to bolster the community resistance. He ran supplies, stole from the Germans, pushed intel up into the resistance fighters in the mountains itself. And it brings me back to the story of the butcher, because he was the only one remotely equipped as the medic on the day that my father was shot, when he had, in the mountains while running supplies, the Germans caught him, and as he ran away, he was shot. But I want you to imagine that in the 1940s, in a remote location up in the hills north of Patras. You're not even a teenager. There's a bullet lodged in your body, you're bleeding, and your friends take you to the town butcher because you couldn't go to the doctor at the time when you're wounded. He was being watched. Now, while the butcher at the time lacked any type of anesthetic, he had sharp knives, and he actually could cut cleanly. But my father knew that his Greek brothers and sisters, committed to one another through Philotimo and the full community, would pull through and save his life. And they did. I wouldn't be here. And they also pulled through for Greece and the entire free world by their commitment, resisting Nazi oppression until the German withdrawal in 1944. It was a year later that my father left, knowing that he played a small, humble role in serving his people and his country. Not for personal glory, but for a cause always greater than himself, and that's freedom. He earned his name. Now, Dad was a naturalized American citizen through his father, and that allowed him passage to the United States, and he sailed home. 15 years alone on a ship that landed in New York City. And he again found himself depending on the kindness and support of his fellow Greeks in the community. Because through miscommunication, when he got off that ship alone, the family was not there to meet him. And as he waited, he feared that without being given over to family, that they're going to send him right back to Greece. So he ran away. He didn't speak English, and he went to a local Greek community in New York, and he went to a diner. And at 15, they brought him in. He worked there. They gave him shelter. And then later, through the church connections, family finally came up through Philadelphia, picked him up, and took him back down to live with family. And it was there in Philadelphia that he finished high school. Now, it wasn't long before, now being a naturalized American, that he was called to serve again, this time, like others, drafted during the Korean War. But once again, Dad was asked to put his mind and his relationships to work. Not on the battlefields of Korea, but conducting counterintelligence operations against the Soviets in post-World War II Germany, on both sides of the border, moving freely, east and west. And when that tour was complete, Dad returned back to the United States. Now, he returned back because he had spent with a Greek-American woman that he had found and met over in Germany. And he followed her back to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where she had recently graduated from Marquette University prior to her own European travels. And it's also where he used his GI Bill earned from his military service to earn his own degree in Milwaukee. And it's where he raised my sister, my brother, and myself, as we strive to earn and continue to re-earn our own name. Now, Dad worked hard. He built businesses. He served on the city council, raising up to the point of president. He served on the police, the fire commission, and committed himself to the community, because he has lived and continues to live what he calls the American dream. And I think that's what this reward recognizes. It's not my father, George Poppas, as an individual man, but rather his story of opportunity, it's of work, and it's of service. And it's a story shared by so many Americans across so many generations. But I'll tell you, when I was a kid, my dad used to tell us the stories about Greece. He'd rave about its beauty. He'd rave about its culture, its food, and how proud we were to be Greeks. I said, that sounds fantastic. We need to move back. But he said, hey, but there's a reason that our family is here. Because for us right now, America's been our land of opportunity. Dad came here in the 40s after a war-ravaged Greece to rise as high as he was willing to work, limited only by his own inspiration. And he has remained relentlessly committed to the communities and the people who allowed our family to thrive. Now, my father's legacy, his name, includes the opportunities he and Mom built for all three of our children. My sister Athena did her undergrad at Brown Medical School, Madison, Wisconsin, and she's a cardiologist that just gave up being the president of the American College of Cardiologists. My brother went to film school. He's a cinematographer out in Los Angeles for TV and film. He followed his passion. For myself, I'm a soldier also. I rose through the same army in which my dad was drafted into, serving multiple tours overseas. You're never too old to want to make your parents proud. Never. I want to thank you for this experience, Mike. Thank you very much. I'll deliver this award to my father over the Veterans Day weekend. I'm going to share the stories that I've heard from everyone this afternoon. But more importantly, I'm going to continue to serve and maintain the integrity of the name. Thank you very much.